Hey guys, this is Crime Scene Analysis. I'm Angie,
I'm Jess.
And I'm Caroline.
and we are bringing you the season 2 finale, 213, The Last Weekend. Written
Keyword
by a
season.
trio, which I believe is the first time we've had a trio
Mhm.
for anything. But what a trio it is. We've got Nora and Lila Zuckerman and Sam Sclaver. Like, come on. One of the creators of the show. So that's pretty much the A team as we're going to get on a script. And then just to add, amazing on top of amazing, again, we have director Chris Grismer kicking butt and taking names this round. So,
Booyah.
all right, guys, we can do this. Let's go. So immediately I had, even in the kind of previously on section at the 4-second mark, I'm already calling out Nathaniel Bloom for his awesome, because the entire little mini clip string section that plays as we see all the flashbacks, them on the boat getting away. I mean, they're just intense and insane, and like they just come straight out the gate ready, because those clips are all intense and insane, and it's a whole bunch of yelling and screaming and syringes and escapes and all that stuff. And so, I mean, from the minute we hit that on the previously, I was like, okay, like here we go. And I just wrote, this will be one of probably a dozen times I call out Nathaniel Bloom again, because, he's Nathaniel Bloom. We love him. I may pray to him on the weekends. It's fine. It's not a big deal. At 23 seconds, we have Malcolm tied to a chair. And quite frankly, it's what all my little wumpy dreams are made of. So just like last episode, we have a lot of like wumptastic-y moments, and a lot of tropes that us wumpy people really enjoy to see in this particular episode. And frankly, I just got super fed and I was very excited about it. Also, the nice hat line by Tom, we learned, was improvised based on a tweet that he sent out. So apparently a bunch of taxidermied animals or whatever equal a lot of improvisation. And when you have a squirrel with the top hat, you compliment his top hat.
I honestly wonder, because that was improvised, if they just had him, like if they set up the camera and they were getting ready to shoot the scene and he was just, sitting in the chair and he looked over and was like, nice hat. And they're like, wait, save that. Like, we could use that.
And scene.
Yep.
Also, a little part of me, like, again, it's because I'm a freak and my mind is always in the gutter. I was like, that's a very oddly positioned hat.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Like, I was like, what are we covering, Mr. Squirrel?
Yeah, it's kind of like, Dick in the box, like.
Squirrel version. Oh, no, wait, no, we can't be explicit. No.
Oh boy.
We can't go that far. What is the squirrel version? Britt would know. She's a squirrel obsessed person.
Okay, I love her tweet though, and apparently the writers retweet. I don't know if the writers retweeted it or liked it. I can't remember what she said, but she was just like, "For those squirrels, for me." Oh my goodness.
Honestly, at this point, the amount of effort that she and the Saviors are putting in, that should have been for her. Let's be truthful.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, that was her Easter egg.
True story, straight up.
Mm-hmm.
At 122, I kind of enjoyed this like complete change in moment where Ainsley gets complimented by her mom. She says like, oh, like you're one of the best reporters you have. And she says, oh, you watch my reports. And immediately I finished the line with not with the sound on, because that's what she said to her the last time. And she kind of, it was not like that. It was very much like a mother proud of her daughter. And that was, you can definitely see Ainsley's reaction to that was like, oh, like there's not a snarky remark coming after this. It was just a compliment. Yay. My outfit doesn't look like the part, the carpet at the DMV.
She did throw in some snark right after though, and she was like, don't get cocky.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, in true Jessica fashion, of course.
Yes.
But
definitely.
It was nice where like she literally said what was like, you're their best reporter or something. So I was like, Jess?
Yeah.
Then, so the very next scene, like we have a lot of quick stuff happening in the first couple minutes of the show. Like we don't have long scenes, like 45 seconds and they're done, 10 seconds and they're done. We're jumping around, a lot's going on. I mean, we fit a lot into like a 43-minute episode for sure. It could have been a 2-hour finale easily. So we get to the scene where our team is watching Capshaw's interrogation with Ruiz. And Gil is just straight up, are you buying this? Like he's putting feelers out. And of course, Danny looks like she's about to jump through the damn glass. Like she's like, F this chick. This is not true. This is not bright at all. But the one that really hit me in the feels was JT. because he said our boy.
Yep.
And I went, oh, that's it. All three of them have now said the our boy in relation to Malcolm.
Yep.
And as our other executive producer, Carrie, pointed out, it's such a nice, again, we have another like complete flip from season 1 where in the penultimate and final episodes of season 1, you know, they were skeptical. They weren't necessarily like, he's 100% guilty, game over, but they were allowing their cop brains to be first. And they were saying, listen, right now the evidence says blah, blah, blah. And now it's very much like, this is bullshit. Like, there's no way, it's not possible. And I still think they're doing that in keeping with being good police officers. I don't think they've just thrown the book out the window. But it was such a great little like, oh, JT, romance is real.
Yeah. That was definitely a nice scene to see because that's exactly where my mind went immediately when both of them, without a doubt, were like, yeah, this is ridiculous. So, I mean, I think JT said our boy may be crazy, but you know,
not that crazy.
Not that crazy. So that was
nice
really
because
nice.
this episode was very light on the team, super light on Adrisa. We'll get into some of that stuff later, but it was a nice, like, at least we have like the team together for a minute, because then they're very much split. Like, you have the duo out with Ainsley, you have Gil handling Jess, and you know, Adrisa pops in for 30 seconds like, remember me? And then at the end of it for her this episode, which sucked. At 2:15, I talked about this last episode, so I'm not going to go on a tangent, but I still cannot believe that Martin thinks that just dyeing his hair dirty blonde means he's not recognizable. And then later I get really frustrated because then it's like, oh, Malcolm's been put on the news, we better run. I'm like, you are way more infamous than him. Why have you just been chilling out, eating pancakes and doing whatever you wanted the whole time? I'm sorry, I digress. Like, it cracks me up that, like, it's like when Superman puts the glasses on and Lois goes, who are you? Like, he's the same freaking dude in glasses. So at 2:41, Martin is explaining to Malcolm, and Malcolm is kind of figuring out, like, okay, if Capshaw is there and she's being questioned, then if she's in any way smart, which we know she's diabolically smart, that she's blaming you, that she's saying you were complicit to all this and you were a part of it. And I don't know if this is necessarily Bloom because it wasn't music based, but there's another really cool moment where we have a sound effect that follows Malcolm's emotions. We had one earlier where he gets like really mad at JT and kind of blows up, and there's just like rumble that happens in a different episode. This one, it literally, you can feel, it sounds to me like an airplane. Like, it is a loud rumble, but you like feel the floor fall out from under him when he puts together like, oh man, I'm being blamed for this. And it's a really neat sound effect. I don't know if that's Bloom or other people. I don't have a clue, but it's really cool. So I have to laugh at that. There's really no point for me to bring this up other than the line is hysterical. The fact that apparently Martin respects men with lady names. It made, like, is that a Johnny Cash reference? Is that like a Boy Named Sue where like you've dealt with the name your whole life and therefore that makes you tough? Like, I don't know, but I just chuckled at like the why Martin? Is that something in particular that you are very strong feelings about?
And then he just like openly says, he says a whole bunch of very like interesting stuff, like when he's like, I knew something that you don't, and like we're in a pickle. I'm like, you're clearly having the time of your life.
Oh yeah, and imbroglio, like, come on.
Yeah, that was one of the things I pointed out was that not only was Martin having the time of his life because it's a whole new setting for him, but Michael was probably having a great time on set because he didn't have this rigid, you know, same thing every time, same clothing, same mannerisms, you know, Martin's tied to the wall kind of things for the most part. Scenes.
I wonder what it must have been like for him to just walk him to set and be like, here's your hoodie. I'm like, what?
Yeah. What? No scrubs, no cardigan? Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and you're gonna paint your whole face this weird yellow. Sweet.
Yeah. So, and by this point too, we start to get a feel that for at least probably the first half of the episode is going to be marked with these funky things that Martin's doing as well as humor.
Oh yeah, it's very buddy cop, which is how Sam and Chris described it. Like, it's buddy cop with a side of one of us isn't sure we want to be here. Like, I mean, but it was like, let me one liner this, one liner that. And I was like, okay, I see you.
Yep.
Guys, I tried so hard at 4:35 to get the lines off this damn fax, but
I did too.
All you can read is Ainsley and Dad.
Dad.
Everything else is just blurred and it's too fast. And I was like, darn, I really wanted the content of the fax to Ainsley.
I saw Claremont mentioned in there too, which probably explains why she went there. But yeah, other than that, it's very brief, which as we see later, the fax that Martin gets back from her is very long and detailed. Like there were like 3 solid paragraphs. I'm like, what did she say? Like, Dad, you freaking suck. Why did you do this? Where did you? Also, I'm going to do as you asked. F you, Ainsley.
And I'm really interested. So she says she went to Claremont. Is that supposed to be like, was it the letter? No, because he has the letters already. I'm trying to figure out why she went to Claremont. First of all, Malcolm has trashed that cell. Good luck finding what you need to find in case we forgot about that. Secondly, like she comes in with then an ADN binder on the Woodsman, which is her network she works for. So like, what was the point of going to Claremont?
Yeah.
Which also brings me, we can go ahead and talk about this too. Like there's honestly no point in Ainsley being with our police, like our group. Like there's no way as a reporter and a reporter connected to this the way she is, she's hauling ass with them up to Vermont. Like you're a civilian, know your role. We are the police officers. A, you're a liability because we have to protect you now instead of doing our investigation. B, you're a liability because you're Ainsley. C, you're a liability because you're Ainsley Whitley. Like there's so many reasons why she should not be with them. And I literally think it's a plot device because we need her to have that conversation at the end.
Yeah.
Both to help with the wife and also to lead into season 3. That's gonna happen, manifest. So I it's a plot device. It's just like the fact that Bright would not have actually been on the manhunt for his own father because of all the conflicts of interest and all that. So, you know, it had to happen. It is what it is. At 5:36, while they're eating nougat and chips, we have this line from Martin that's, don't you think it's possible that I've changed? And that is really just the entire episode's theme. Is it possible for him to have actually changed? Does Malcolm believe him? Malcolm struggle with, is he going to turn him in or let him go? What's going to happen? And that's the entire episode in a nutshell, is this relationship between these two and how are they going to navigate it, and what are Malcolm's thoughts about this I'm a changed man. I personally, and some people are going to say, well, you know, you're not a Martin fan to begin with. I am. I like the character. Based on everything he did prior to exiting Claremont, you're not really a changed man. Like you still straddled Eddie and popped his eyeballs. You still, you know what I mean? Like there's just so many things that
intended
like,
to kill
still
Jerry.
Done. Yeah, like full on. It's that Jerry. Like all this other stuff. Yeah. Like, so I don't really see a lot of changed man. I see a lot of, I'm going to say what I need to say to get what I want when I want it, which is textbook manipulator, textbook gaslighting stuff. So I'm like, meh.
Yeah. And the surprising thing I've seen today is I've seen people, not as many as I had thought, but I've seen people being like, oh, I really thought Martin had changed and blah, blah, blah. And like, why did this happen? You know, referring to the end scene. I was just like, do you not understand Martin's psychology after 2 seasons and everything we've seen him do and the way we've seen him manipulate and play people, especially Malcolm? Like,
yeah, my husband did the same thing when we did the rewatch, and he was like, "Oh, he was really starting to change," and I just went, "What? Like, that's
first
it.
of all,
Call the counselor. We need therapy. What's happening?" Like, and he's like, he still stands like Malcolm was in the wrong, and I'm like, boy, we need to have a mediator in this discussion right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like as Malcolm said later in the episode, that's not how psychopathy works. Like,
you don't turn it on and off because you had a good day.
No, you don't. Period. Sorry.
So I do have a question, and maybe you guys have a little clarification for me. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how exactly them finding the woodsman proves Malcolm's innocence and all the Capshaw stuff.
So it's just a thing to make them look good and get the cops off their back a little bit.
But it does not prove innocence. Like,
no, it doesn't.
Deed.
No, it doesn't.
If we figure this out, everything will be scot-free and you'll be, and
Yeah.
I'm like, no, this has no, and at one point I was like, Malcolm, you're not buying this, are you? Like, this does not clear anything related to Capshaw.
No.
I was like, maybe I missed something.
It definitely doesn't prove any innocence. It doesn't clear anything. It just shines them up a little bit, especially
but
Martin.
Like, on what planet is anyone gonna find the escaped Dr. Martin Whitley and be like, hold on, guys, hold on, he found the woodsman, I think we should just let him go? Like, it's not gonna happen. On what planet does that occur?
Yeah, Martin like knows how badly people want answers in cold cases, especially when it has to do with children, and teenagers and whatnot. So he's just like, well, we'll go make ourselves look good, and then they can't chew us out for as many things. I loved that part right there where Malcolm stole his thunder with like the line "the woodsman," and it was really funny to hear the music also like swell and drop off at the same time.
Record scratch.
It's just like, this is great.
And then we have a line that will forever live probably in years of fan fiction, which is my partner Cameron.
Oh my god. I
laugh so hard at the pronunciation, at just the existence of that sentence, and Malcolm looking at him like, what the hell?
Yeah. I love that we all lost it in Discord. Like, some of us were like, we're not even gonna be in here, but everybody popped in at that point and was like, my partner, what?
At 7:24, we have a very foreshadow style line where he being Martin tells Malcolm, I'm going to prove to you that I'm a changed man, even if it kills me.
As I was watching this, I literally did this. I was like, ah!
I just wrote, you're not, and it might. That's what I wrote as an answer. At 7:46, all I could think of, and this might date me too, God, I know the two of you are probably not going to get this reference. I'm going to feel super old. Martin's reaction to the pancakes was giving me huge When Harry Met Sally vibes.
That's my favorite movie.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. Carol has it. Carol has it.
Crawl under the table.
I said out loud, especially when you see that woman in the corner of the shot laughing, I literally said out loud to my TV, I'll have what he's having. Like,
I wanted it so bad. I wanted one person to be like, I'll have what he's having. Oh, that makes me happy, Carol. All right, we got one.
That is my favorite movie.
But also, he's making an absolute scene in that restaurant. Earlier, he says to Malcolm, what? I'm incognito. And I'm like, you are not
incognito.
Again, that's what makes me so annoyed with later. Like, magically Malcolm's picture's been up, so we better run and get away. I'm like, you were having fake orgasms over pancakes in the middle of like all the townsfolk. Like, why is this a big deal now?
Yeah.
Shout out to this entire episode for being mostly outside and giving us the glorious Tom Paine blue eyes we all deserve in good light. Thank you, Lord Jesus.
It's true. Yes. Lighting this time.
Yeah, there was so much natural light.
It was natural light and just bing. At 10:52, we have Gil and Ruiz kind of arguing. She wants to put a bolo out on Bright, and then Gil knows immediately, like, that's going to be tap him on sight. Like, we know for sure what's going to happen. And I just love that he kind of raises her voice, gets aggressive with her for once, because he's always very much the liaison, like, I understand that you outrank me, whatever. And then he says, I just said, Gil doing what he's been doing since the pilot, staking his entire career on Malcolm Bright. I mean, literally since day one, that's what he's been doing in the name of trying to help Bright and let him do this stuff. And then he kind of just full out yells it at her. And I mean, this is what Papa Gil's been doing the whole time.
Yep. And there is so much to the line that Ruiz sort of says in response to him before she walks off. Like, if another body drops, like, it's not on my hands, it's on yours. And I just feel like, knowing so much about like true crime investigations, the person who like is in charge of anything, the person who is in charge gets blamed immediately, and that stays with you forever.
There's again, I'm gonna have to do a mini episode of just the music in this episode because I don't have time to hit every single mini score thing that Nathaniel Bloom does. There's a great moment if you want to go back to this scene and listen to the score that underplays it. It really sounds like stomping feet, and it's very much like Ruiz's kind of clout in this scene and the threat of the fact that she can do that to Bright. It's a very cool addition. And I had like a paragraph rant, but it's just there's no time. I'll save it. That'll be another episode later.
Minisode.
At 11:23, seriously, I don't know why, but this is one of the two biggest moments in this scene that hit me in the feels, and I got choked up, and you're gonna so laugh at me. You are gonna crack up. I got choked up at the fact that he had an NYPD identification card.
I was waiting to see if someone mentioned anything. I haven't seen anything.
I don't know why, but I just went, oh, like, I mean, I know like he's not a cop, but like he has an ID card for Pete's sake. Like that's a big deal. He's part of the fam. And I don't know why, but it hit me. Like I just went, oh, and of course I've been crazy emotional the whole like past 8 days, but I was just like, they gave him an ID.
Yeah, I really wanted to go back and like zoom in to see like what it said or something, like if it's just
it's the same picture that later shows up on his wanted poster too, so I don't know if that was a device to get the picture out because we need it on the poster later. I don't care either way. I'm super excited and it gives me all the happy feels. That's all that matters.
It's just really sweet.
At 11:41 we meet Sheriff Fern Cooley. Fern being short for what? Any clue?
That's a name.
Just Fern?
Yeah, that's a name.
Okay, I was waiting. I was like, is that short for something? I have never met a Fern in my life. I mean, I've met Ferns the plant. I have not met Fern the people. So I was interested on if it was like supposed to be abbreviated for something. Or she is played by Anna Gunn, who, if anyone knows, huge claim to fame in Breaking Bad. That being said, other than playing Skylar White on that show, I mean, this chick has some Dwayne Johnson level acting credit chops. Like, I mean, her muscles are very strong in the acting world. Aurora gushed about the fact that she just showed up to set and there she was, because she would deliberately try to like not look up who had been chosen for some of these guest roles, because she said Danny would just react to these people. And so I want to just react. Like, who is this person? What are they acting like? Whatever. And then she said the reaction to her was like she had to check herself and be like, be Danny, not Aurora, you know. And I thought that was super cute that she had her little like starstruck moment of, oh my God, it's Anna Gunn. And I just gotta say, like, the minute we got the preview, which don't get me started about Fox's stupid preview issues for the promo clips for this episode, or stupid Fox.
That's why
we're moving on. We're a professional show. Ish. For most of the time. I mean, they showed us this clip of meeting Cooley and her husband Dawn, and the entire Twitterverse just went, there he is. Obviously, that's the woodsman. And I'm like, no way did they show us this clip and it just be so bump. And then they showed the other clip that was like all spoiler bonanza right before the episode started. So I'm like, yes, they would. They don't give two craps at this point. So I'm at least glad that they threw a red herring in there later to like kind of throw us off the scent a little bit with the other deputy. But I'm like, really? They just popped him up and went, you guys know about that woodsman? Like, you moved on. I was like, really? This is him. We already know who this is.
But I mean, you know, even if it was just very like predictable, it was, I also, you know, knowing in hindsight that he is the woodsman and that, you know, him and his wife had this whole dynamic, it reminded me a lot of what psychopaths do to the people that they're affectionate with, but just a term called love bombing. And it's just like throwing, you know, your love on them, like, oh, I brought you like, you know, your, what kind of salad was
egg
it? Or
salad, yeah.
I brought you your egg salad. So it was kind of like that, but also in a way, also in hindsight, we know that he does this like every Friday. It's also him like sort of showing up to be around whatever's going on.
Check
like
in.
In case someone like Malcolm walks in and is like, oh, so this case, and she's like, what are you talking about?
Nothing to see, honey, nothing to see.
Yeah. Very interesting.
You'll notice later too, again, knowing who our actual woodsman is, the minute they pull up that board, that actor is amazing in the background, blurry, not even a focal point of the scene, just like staring with the smiley face and all of his stuff on the side. Like, I mean, he's full on admiring his own handiwork behind Malcolm's back.
Yeah, exactly.
And even like the sheriff is kind of just looking at him like, let's not smile while we stare at the thing. Like, you can tell there's a whole background dynamic. And it's so nice when you have like seasoned actors that do these things, because you don't have to do that. You could just stand there, but it adds such a depth to the scene that you can catch these little Easter eggs and stuff that they didn't have to do. But it's beautiful. And he did, like, he was full on like, oh God, look at how great I am. Like,
exactly.
He was very proud.
And the fact that he was even there to begin with, like, I don't care if you are the sheriff's like spouse, you should not be in here. And I'm surprised that Malcolm wasn't like, wait, why is he still like chilling? But
it's the same reason why Danny and JT put Ainsley in the car with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Black device. At 13:47, we have what I originally thought when we saw the promo clip was gonna be like some Gillica shutdown, maybe, the way they played it off. The line where he says, like, you know, some mistakes are just too big. And I think based on Bellamy's post, this was her last scene, or at least the last scene with Lou, because there was some emotional hugging in pictures that she posted recently of her and Lou in these outfits in his office. So it was either the last scene she did with Lou, or maybe the last scene she did period before she broke for the season. So that was like right in the feels. That hug between the two of them was just mom and dad. Like, come on.
Yeah, whether that was Jess and Gil or Lou and Bellamy.
Either way, it just hits you right in the feels.
It's just so cute.
And I just wrote, like, not that I would have done anything differently than what Jessica did related to Martin, because I told you I was totally down with her decision in the last episode. But she's very much earned this kind of scolding from Gil, because at this point he's covering up legitimate criminal activity in the name of how he feels about her. And that doesn't even include the Endicott shit. Like, this is just what he knows about at this point. So I mean, she needed to get like a little bit of a go to your room discussion from Gil. And I was very interested in, does he really feel in his heart some mistakes are just too big? Or was that him trying to tell her how big this really is, even though he hasn't really changed how he feels about her? Like, I need to say something that's going to make her understand the weight of this. And because sometimes she doesn't. Like, I don't know if it's growing up in money or whatever, but sometimes it's like, I'm a little bit above the law and I'm just going to make these decisions and it'll be all good. Maybe it's her connection to Gil and she's like, oh, he's going to keep me safe, it'll be fine. Or the money. But either way, she thinks she has some get out of jail free passes. And quite frankly, she does so far. Don't even get me started on Malcolm. Just has like a 28 Uno hand of get out of jail free passes. So as Jess, you mentioned this, and it was so funny because I was mid-typing it. We do this so well. We're like about to type something at the same time in Discord, and we're just like, yes, like same thought. You mentioned like that maybe Martin had called in Malcolm.
Yeah, when I forget what exactly happened in the scene that had me like screaming in Discord, but I was like, I'm calling it now. I'm calling it right now. Oh, because Martin was alone and he picked up the phone and called Malcolm. And then at some point he said something and I was like, I'm calling it right now. He's on his own. He's got a phone. He totally called Malcolm in order to keep Malcolm from calling Gil, because we've seen multiple times already, and we're not even halfway through the episode, I think, where Martin has to like talk him down from calling him in. And that's the last thing he wants him to do. So I was like, oh, he put a mark on his head to keep him running with him.
Yeah, I was like mid-type the same thing. So then I just deleted it and went, yes. Like, I just answered with a yes. I was like,
I'm glad I'm not the only one that thought that, because we find out actually that's not really true. I mean, we don't really have
like
details,
for once, it was literally
that's not
just
actually true.
Leaked, I guess.
Yeah, it was just
from Capshaw's
just,
testimony or something.
Yeah, from Capshaw.
Or maybe
I think Ruiz
I guess that would have been Ruiz, right? Yeah, like you're saying.
I think she just went ahead
and
no, that's fine. I think she just went ahead and was like, well, I don't care what Gil said. Capshaw has said enough. We're still gonna put a bolo out for him, because regardless, Yeah, whether he's, whether Capshaw is telling the truth or not, Malcolm Bright needs to be found. He either has been kidnapped or he has run away. So
yeah, there's a manhunt one way or the other, depending on what side it's on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you could make a case for both because it says on the news report, I remember it saying like an inside source. So I'm like, all right, is this
okay?
Like, is this really, because you could call into a news station and say like, it's Malcolm, Malcolm Bright is involved, like blah, 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 and then just hang up. Or, or it could be Ruiz like going to a reporter who's using her as an inside source. Yeah. Like it could, we don't know.
A secret inside.
Yeah, exactly.
But a source within the family? Is that what like the TMZ crap does every time they have something about a celebrity?
Yeah. It's like,
AKA the dude on the corner.
Yeah.
That said, we did this.
Mm-hmm.
At 15:50, we zoom in on Malcolm Bright's wanted poster, which a little part of me died. But again, it's the picture from the ID card. So I was like, okay, maybe that was part of the reason why we show, like, because otherwise, why would they have such a nice headshot of Malcolm at the NYPD? Like, that's a little weird to be like dead on, hey, like a really nice headshot of Malcolm. But also, I really appreciated that they were just straight up true and they listed him as 5'7". I know that sounds silly, but a lot of times, especially for your lead, they're gonna like, hey, he's like 5'9" and 5'10" on a good day. No, they were straight up just like, okay, he's 5'7". I'm like, thank you. There's nothing wrong with the man being 5'7". You don't have to pretend like he's 6'8". Like, let him be his height. He's killing it.
Hey, yeah. Short men are my type. I'm not.
Like, I openly is all.
Sorry, I'm a tall person. So
yeah, see, those of us females that are taller, it's a little harder for us.
Yeah.
To play the short, not like 5'8". Jess, you're like 5'9", 5'10".
5'8", 5'9". Yeah. There's nothing wrong with the woman being taller at all, but
no,
some people they prefer the guy to be taller, and I am one of those.
Yeah, I just prefer them shorter. Sorry to my 6-foot boyfriend. Anyways.
My husband's 6'6", so it's all good.
Yeah.
So in this same scene, I really enjoyed Aurora's performance in this tiny little scene, which granted, almost all of her scenes this episode are tiny. God bless. Sorry, Britt. Like, she goes through a whole like spectrum of emotions just staring at this poster, and it's literally a couple seconds scene. It's not long, but you get the like pissed that he ran off. At least for all she knows, he went rogue and ran off at this point. They still haven't seen each other since they made out in the the storage unit. So she's pissed that he ran off. She's worried about where he is. She's got romantic conflicting emotions and what does that mean and blah blah blah. And then mirroring what he does in the penultimate episode of the first season, like rips crap off the board, throws it, is like super pissed. And then, of course, there's Big Brother JT, trying to be there for. And again, he admits, like, I like Bright, like he's important to us now. So we get the importance of family there, which is great.
Yeah.
And she did a great job for the couple scenes she actually got to be at this point for this episode. She hit a lot of good points. And I like to praise Aurora whenever possible because she's a cool human.
I feel like she has had multiple, like, face journeys throughout each of the little like scenes that she's in, like from that scene, even when she's like looking at Capshaw and she's sort of like not today,
full on like
yes. Exactly, like right up to the very end, which we'll definitely talk about later.
Yes,
she
ma'am.
just, there is not much that she says verbally, but there is so much going on here, which is very nice to see. Great acting.
I appreciate this scene a lot. It's probably like one of my favorite scenes in the entire episode for two reasons. One, like you mentioned, Angie, JT walks in and he, tries to console Danny a little bit. She's like, I don't need that. But also he admits it. He's like, I never thought I'd say this, but I like the guy, but also, so that's how we see like some more team dynamics. We haven't seen a lot of that for long periods of time, especially the second half of the episode, as it's been following, things.
Really, the last couple episodes of the season, once Martin escaped,
once Martin escaped, separated, it was like everything was focused on him. So, so that's one reason. And then the other is because we've seen so many emotionally based scenes happen in the conference room, and usually not all the time, but usually they happen between Malcolm and Danny.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we've got drink more tea with friends in the trip, and
never better shaky hand.
Never better shaky hand. And then
Yep.
After Eve's death, when he's staring at the board, like you mentioned, how they react the same way, she's the one that walks in, and she usually takes the role that JT took, walking in on her, seeing, you know, what was going on. So I really liked, this episode was just loaded with callbacks and juxtapositions and parallels to so many key moments through not just season 2, but season 1 as well.
Yeah.
So that was a really nice scene to see, and it did it so well in such a short time.
Yep.
You said it was such a short scene. So.
At 1748, we have some more buddy cop stuff. Did you steal this truck? I've got chips. You know, there's all sorts of little one-liner moments in this scene.
Going on a stakeout and be like,
yeah, I know. Like, they're so excited. I'm not Cameron, you're Cameron. Like, we're very, like, keep it together. But there are probably, I'm going to estimate because I should have, but I did not actually count, probably between 5 and 9 different versions of the We're the Same theme that play in this episode. They're like the buddy cop banter versions where it's a little bit more like upbeat and you know, whatever, and all the way to the one that I'm gonna have, you guys are gonna have to like give me a wrap it up box later, like that's gonna happen at the end. Like Britt's got to be like turn it off, stop. But it's just genius, like the different way he weaves melodies to be happy, upbeat, goofy, depressing, ominous. Like he just hits all of them, and it's wonderful. And I'm good. At 2008, I'm just gonna read how I put it. Martin Whitley, the surgeon, horrific murderer and predatory psychopath, will under no circumstances piss in a bottle, sir. He has morals.
Oh my goodness.
Of all
I'm like, I would never expose myself. It's one of those things where, again, having worked in a prison, it always makes me, I don't want to say laugh because that sounds inappropriate, but it like astonishes me the hierarchy of dirt bags and which dirt bags look down on the other dirt bags in prison. Just where, like, you know, there's a special place for the predatory pedophile style people versus just the guys that dismember people and pull their entrails out through their nostrils. And so he's literally like, I would not expose myself. Are you kidding? Like, you have murdered 23 people. Why is that the thing that you like? Absolutely not. I draw the line at this point.
I mean, more than anything, you're in the car with your son. I know that it's an old truck and stuff, but like no one is like, this isn't broad daylight and like people are walking by. Like you just, I mean, come on.
He's like, I'll gaslight, manipulate, completely ruin my son's mental health and any chance at maybe a decent relationship in his future, but damned if he can't accidentally see my penis.
Yeah.
When they probably did the like father-son baths when he was a 6-month-old or something anyway. Like any parent has picked up the child of their gender and run into the shower when they were like 2 and then the scrub and then handed them back to the other parent. Like
come on.
Right. Like you're dudes.
I may have chloroformed my son. I may have chloroformed my son and helped people's lives in my hands, but that ain't happening.
You know, and almost took him to a cabin to murder. But God forbid he watched me pee in this Gatorade bottle. That's not a Gatorade bottle because we ripped the label off, but left the lightning.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you can tell.
Wink, wink. Not sponsored by.
The only other thing that I had noticed in this scene was when, you know, Malcolm's having all the flashbacks and Martin's like, well, what are you thinking about? Also, I believe he says my boy. He says my boy so many times in this episode, and I'm just like, whoa. But he said it, and Malcolm responded with "you, always you." And that the first thing that I thought of was the Stranger Beside You episode where he says that to Eve.
Yep.
So I mean,
another
totally,
time where I go.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Same emotion. I was trying to think like, what's the connection here? Oh, I was mad both times.
Disdain and nausea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's the connecting factor.
Yeah. And the thing is we know the context behind him saying "you, always you," because if anybody heard that, if anybody saw that in a script or saw it like written down in a description of, you know, father asking his son, what are you thinking about? And the son says, you, always you. It could be like, oh, he's thinking of his dad, blah, blah, blah. And no, we know the context behind that. He's having nightmares and at other times hallucinations because of you.
Yeah.
Always because of you.
Which is something that's so interesting with some of the press we've had in the past couple days since that episode, of Sam and Chris kind of teasing little nuggets here and there on what their pitch for season 3 would be, and the fact that they're, you know, totally hardcore shopping this to other outlets, saying that, like, they keep saying very cryptic things like, we would be horrible writers if we killed off Michael Sheen and didn't find some way to bring him back. Or, like, you know, he can be in many forms. Like, they're saying all these things to where, you know, maybe he doesn't die, maybe he does. But even if he does, they've basically told us he's going to be in hallucination form effing with Bright a lot.
Yeah.
So they're very witty in the fact that, like, again, you have to do something dramatic, but you also he can't be prodigal son without the father.
Yeah.
And it's very important. So I was intrigued and excited about that. One, because there had been, myself included, some wondering about, is he going to keep coming back and forth from London? And would that be something in the future that he would keep doing? So it sounds as though, you know, he would be on board with whatever version of that would take, which is exciting.
Yeah. And like Malcolm is not going to forget about Martin, even if he were to die. Like this is long-standing trauma. This is never going to go away.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it
just
would be
try
nice,
and take him.
But no.
Yeah, try and take him out of this show. You can't.
At 22 even, I just put in big giant letters, cat fight.
Yes. Yes.
First things first, I adore the camera angles and the music skew and stuff when Jess is, we think, dosed and being affected by that dosage. It's such a cool thing just to have it off kilter suddenly. Yeah. And she's a little sideways this way, and it almost makes you a little nauseous when you're watching it. And that's just a really, they've done that multiple times this season where they've put us kind of in the head of the character. They did it with Capshaw, they've done it with Bright. And that's just a really cool symbolic thing. I absolutely had like a woo kind of moment when you hear Gil in the earpiece. And you're like, oh yeah, it's a setup, let's go.
Yeah,
like I was very excited, like she's working with them, let's get it done. Although how far away from this freaking house were they? I know they're not in the front yard, like I get it, they can't be like right there, but it took them forever to get to her. And like, you know, there's a good chance something's gonna go wrong, and then they were just like, excuse me, could you please open this door? Hello?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't break down the door. Like,
not to mention, it's a double door with just a little latch and the bottom hook. That means it bends at the top. Go through that effort. Let's go. Like, simple physics.
Come on.
Anyway, I was like, take your time, guys. Take your time getting to Jess while she's having a full-on brawl with
with Capshaw. Yeah, I mean, like, Watkins took down the door in one of the doors in that house quicker.
Like,
yeah.
Nice reference. That makes me happy. At 25:57, I'm not kidding you, this was the first moment, one of a couple in this episode, that I got full-on chills from the music and the visual put together. This is the moment where the actual woodsman gets revealed in this like low camera angle, slow-mo walking up. He's in full leather face fanboy outfit from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for God's sakes. But just, they have these like thumping footsteps, the slow-mo, this pan, the music that goes with it. It is just, it's inspired. Like, I don't like horror, but it just had me going like hardcore. Are you fucking kidding me?
I can't hear it, whatever it is.
It's a chainsaw. For God's sake.
Perfect timing!
Oh my God,
it's a lawnmower.
It is literally like chainsawing something, but it was good timing for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But yeah, so I was like, this is the shiz. And they do it again, which I'll talk about in a minute once we come into barn mode. At 26:18, we have Capshaw kind of doing the poker choker. That sounds like an inappropriate thing, but it's not. And you can totally see the rubber poker bending. Like, it's almost in a U in this scene. Like, they pull it too much, and I'm like, almost, guys, I get it. You can't put a real metal thing around Bellamy's neck. She's precious. But it was a little bit too bendy.
So
There.
one of the promo photos from, I believe it was, the Prodigal Son, Twitter account, the main account, had posted one of those, I think it was one of those cryptic Instagram ones that they were putting up.
Yeah.
And it was on Twitter, and it had somebody holding a fire poker of sorts in their hands, and I had to go tag Caroline and be like, yo, is this the staircase all over again?
At 26:39, I wrote "Breathe, Ange" as a reminder to myself to breathe, because we have some tied up and dangly Malcolm in the barn. And that was just Carrie and I had our own little separate like auga moment for all of that to happen. Complete with like, little wumpy blood on the face. The whole bonanza is just a wumper's dream. And in that scene, we have a moment that I really enjoyed, and it's kind of rare that I'm always gonna say like I really enjoyed and liked Martin in this scene, but I really did. Again, love Michael and the character, but I'm not always a big fan of Martin as a human. I just love that he says, "I don't think this ends well for us, bud."
Mm-hmm.
And there was so much about that sentence, or sorry, he says "for you and me." There's so much about that sentence. Like, first of all, the affectionate term of bud, like very much like my little boy kind of situation. I don't think, and to this day, he has not called him that in an episode that I know of.
No.
At all. Like, he's kind of said my boy, and Gil says kid, and there's all these other things, but bud is new. And also, I mean, Martin is legitimately scared about what's going to go down in this scene. And I just wrote, if Martin Whitley is scared, we should be absolutely petrified. Like, if he is worried and terrified. And even Malcolm, you see it on his face, like, what? Like, if my dad, the psychotic killer, is that scared, this is not going to go well at all. So he's already trying to compute, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And it was one of the few times where I really did feel like Martin was being super genuine with him. There was no manipulation happening there. There was no undertone of what can I get out of this. It really was just a moment of a father thinking him and his son are going to die right there together. And I think a lot of the other scenes between the two have a mixture of manipulation versus father. And so this one I felt was pretty pure. I didn't feel like there was any undertone going on there of Martin in any way.
Yeah. And I also feel like the only other time that we've actually seen him be legitimately scared, or actually no, there was the point in the pilot when Malcolm pointed out that Martin was scared, but the time that I thought of was in Alone Time, when Gil comes to Martin and says like he's been taken by walk-ins, and he goes, oh no. So it's just interesting that I still really, and I would love to do a whole mini episode on this later, I really question the depths of his feelings. I feel like the feelings that he has for his kids are only because of this narcissistic, like they are an extension of me. But it's just interesting that the only times that he is like genuinely afraid are in reference to like himself getting in trouble, or more than that, Malcolm possibly being injured. So
yeah, for sure. It was the same way with Endicott too. Like for him to be even remotely scared, it was like both he's going to come after you and me, like it's going to affect me as well, not just them. So yeah, I completely agree. Like there's always some like, how does this affect me in there? But I did not feel that in this scene, like other than the fact that like, hey, he's hanging there too. But I really felt like this is not good.
Well, yeah, I mean, he knows.
It was genuine. Yeah, it was pretty genuine. Of like,
they know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that there's no manipulation attached to that absolute, horror on his face. Because I had written the same thing. I was like, he's not playing for manipulation. So I enjoy the fact that that was widely noticed by people. And once again, we thought the same thing.
Yeah, shocker. At 29:50, we have, the trio, even though it's supposed to be a duo, in the sheriff's office there. They're putting two and two together.
Wait. Can I just say this, that it reminds me so much of like, you could do a Skylar Sisters version of this. It's like
Angelica, Eliza.
No, well, I think that she would love it because she would just be like, and Ainsley, like,
That
and
is the
me.
most.
But
She is the most Ann Peggy moment of her
Yes.
entire career as the journalist walking
That
through
is
behind the
fantastic.
NYPD for no reason.
That
Ann
is
Peggy.
great.
Yep.
Love
That's
it.
great.
Love it.
Especially when that cop recognizes her when he lets them in. And just
Uh,
the look on her face, she's like,
yeah, I didn't catch that the first time. Her reaction.
Oh my
I thought she
God.
had like.
So
I
proud.
thought she like deadpanned, ignored him. No, she was just like.
no, she was
she was
living
loving
for it.
I was
I
like,
was like, oh, Ainsley, don't.
Always worried more about myself than others.
Mhm.
at
Oh,
least he kept it like just recognition rather than creepy, like he was in front of Malcolm.
Oh, I mean, you saw
Also,
his.
he wasn't the cop that tried to bone Capshaw the other
Yeah,
day.
it didn't get
Yeah.
that creepy, but yeah.
He did have elevator eyes. I watched him.
Oh,
I
yeah.
watched where
Oh,
that
yeah.
went.
Yep. At 20, so at this moment, at exactly 29:50, we have. Anytime we get to have a badass Danny moment, it makes me super happy. I loved the way they played the JT line though, where he's like, "Hey, I'm not a threat to you, but you should know she is." And then it's
Yes.
like, "Ah."
Mhm.
It was just like that. That's what she did. I love it. I love that we let her be a badass and that she
Mhm.
gets to do things that are legitimate for her size, for her weight, for her, like she, they don't do things that are so over the top. It's like, yeah, right. Even JT wouldn't do that, but they let her in her realm, like take some shit over. And I
Mhm.
really enjoy it. It makes me
Mhm.
happy.
Yes.
Danny's kicking ass and taking names.
Again,
Yeah.
if we only get like 4.2 seconds of her this episode, at least she can take somebody down in the meantime.
Mhm.
Yes.
The only other thing that I had thought, because we see like she takes Cooley down and then knocks her gun away and then points her Glock at her. I just had like a brief thought go through my head, like, are you allowed to carry, if you're a cop, are you allowed to carry a gun outside of your jurisdiction? I was like, is that even? And technically, it is. I looked up. It's a law that a qualified law enforcement officer can go anywhere, regardless of state or whatever laws.
I believe they can carry off duty. It just
Yes.
holds different weight in terms of
The decisions
firing.
they make and what
Yes.
they're allowed to do.
and you
Yes,
know what
exactly.
happens if they do fire their weapon on duty versus off
But there's
duty.
been a lot of cases like that where like they've been in gas stations and someone tries to rob it. They're like, nope.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that
oh,
is
crap,
definitely
come on.
justified
Like,
too.
forget it. Mhm.
Yeah,
This
and
is
something
the one
like
I decided
that.
to rob.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and something like that is not hard to prove. Like, hey, look, I wasn't just being ridiculous and firing my weapon.
Yeah,
Oh
So,
yeah, for sure.
exactly.
At 30:51, I really loved, again, just a small added touch in production where the woodsman punches Martin and you hear the minute he punches him, the little like ding, where the nut falls off of the thing and lands on the ground. And that becomes a thing. Like that's important that he can get out of this thing now, but you hear it. You hear that little metal clang as it hits the wood. And then you see Malcolm immediately like he heard it. He's trying to find it. Like, what is it? Where did it go? Anything to help. But they didn't have to do that. Like they could have just had the punch and then been like, look what happened. And then put two and two together with the camera. But the just little sound effect that was probably like 0.4 seconds worth of someone's time. It made a big deal where it was like, ooh, interesting.
Yeah, audio mixing is no joke. Like, God bless those people.
And Britt's like, ah.
Yeah.
She's like, I feel seen.
Yeah.
She shows us like 98 layers in a 1 second clip of something, you know?
Yep.
So in terms of at 31:49, we have the kind of father-son, like, let's take him down moment. It looks as though for the most part, it is Tom doing this kick because they hold on his face.
Yeah.
They do like a camera angle from over the shoulder of the woodsman and hold on his face. And I'm like, finally, let the man. He can at least pull himself up on a rope, for God's sakes.
I thought so too.
So they do that. However, and I have these pictures and I hope Britt can put them up. It is blatantly a stunt double to the point for the woodsman, to the point where I didn't even have to slow down the episode to see it. Like it just, they do like a full cover of his face after he gets hit. And I was like, that's not his face.
Not the same.
Like you didn't even try. And when you pause it, I mean, different dimensions. He's not nearly the same size and shape as the guy. His face is completely different. I just went, y'all just completely went, nah, we don't care. Like, I'm like, come on, guys. It's really, really blatantly obvious. Look at 31:50. It is full camera on face of the stunt guy, which cool. Good for you, man. You got some recognition. But it was like,
He got to
okay,
get
who
kicked in the
fell
face.
asleep on that scene and didn't get their stuff done
no.
on time?
It's like, this is where, like, maybe HBO Max could do a better job with the stunt double.
With the awesome graphic cases and the sex scenes and the language and
I'm just putting it out there, you know.
We love our
Production.
crew though.
That's true. Here's the thing. Yeah, no disrespect. Like, who knows why it happened, or if there was nothing else they could do. You know, we don't have the CGI money to put somebody else's face over it, whatever.
But let me tell you who does have the budget.
Yeah. At 3207, we do have that speech that we aforementioned, Ainsley's speech to Cooley. You know, it's a really good speech about, like, I'm half darkness and I'm half lightness, and I have to decide which one I'm going to be, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sorry at this point. Again, I like Ainsley, but I was kind of rolling my eyes. I'm like, boo, you have made that decision. Like, that has come and gone. You've hacked somebody to pieces. You've completely manipulated people and all that. So I'm like, you know, we'll see. But you go ahead and lecture somebody about their life decisions, sweetheart. Please lecture someone else about what they've done in their life.
Yeah, and JT and Danny have no idea about this either. So, like, why wouldn't she go full on? Like, she's, like, proving to them, like, see, I'm not just coming, you know, for clout and inside reporting stuff for later. I have a purpose here. So, you know,
and this was why she had to be there. Like, we had to have that moment for her to get the information out of Cooley, but also leading into season 3, is she going to have this, am I good, am I bad, I don't know, what am I going to do? And so we have to plant those seeds for a finale. That's what we do. We plant seeds for the future, because the future is coming.
Exactly. Yeah, like, we need it.
So that's the only reason she's been with them this whole time, is for this moment, for this scene, because it's her last, is it not, of the episode? Like, she's done at this point.
No, she was...
no, sorry.
She was
have another
there
one?
in the woods. She asked Jeannie where they
are.
are.
Okay, you're right. Where did they go? You're correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, like, I mean, she's not exactly front and center for a lot.
It's the last poignant scene that she's in.
Yeah.
True. I did like the lines that she said, though. I did mention it to you guys in Discord that night. And Angie, I think it was you. You were like, yeah, but she knows how to play people, and we know what she's done. So I'm on both sides of that. Like, the lines, they were great. They were really symbolic. I loved it. You know, especially the whole, I knew I was half, you know, darkness because of my father. But then she compliments Jess, and then she's like, but if you do this, both of the parents for your children are, you know, they're both gonna grow up, you know, not having anything to look to, you know, any goodness to look at.
Yeah, the writing itself was gorgeous. Whether I'm buying how Ainsley feels about it is one thing, but the delivery on Halston's part, the writing was amazing. It was well done.
Yes.
Yeah. And I appreciate that her and JT took on the role that Malcolm usually takes when they're confronting someone and trying to get answers. Not necessarily talking them down in this case, because she's not the killer, but he's usually the one that, you know, talks and plays on the emotions and gets in their head. And now we see JT doing it as well as Ainsley. So.
And also Danny was the one who, like, pinned the woodsman, and someone on Twitter, I forget who it was, but someone was like, of course Danny, like, identifies, you know, the real killer the way that Malcolm would, and then they said something like, that's Malcolm's girl, and I was like, go.
Yes, that's so true.
Name a more iconic duo. I dare you.
Yep.
At 33:31, so it actually starts at the end of Ainsley's kind of monologue here. The song starts to play, and it leads into this next whole epic scene. This is the second time where I had, like, an emotional reaction to some shit going down. So this whole song that plays, and they actually strip some of the lyrics out, and it's just kind of the under melody that happens. It's called "Losing My Mind," ironically in parentheses, stripped, by Mizio. And so it starts as she's giving this speech, and then it moves into the scene where Malcolm and Martin start discussing, what are we going to do? We have to figure out what this girl is. And then Malcolm is essentially asking Martin, like, you have to revert to your old ways. I need you to do this. But some of the lyrics that I did want to mention, they open with, on dreary days, I like to think about the joy I had as a young, reckless kid. On dreary days, I like to drown out the sociopath.
Why did you have to say that? I want to cry now.
Be anymore. And then it says the chorus kind of is, I have nothing left to give. I'm losing my mind. And like, so like, I mean, come on. Like, did they just search like Malcolm Bright related songs and then this popped up and they got the rights for it and it all worked out?
Someone had a great Spotify playlist that they just
for real, for
right
sure.
into.
Like, it's a great fit. And again, this whole conversation is him asking his dad to revert. And this is kind of the catalyst, I think, for most of the argument of the people that are saying Martin was done dirty in this episode, which I don't agree, but whatever, you know, to each their own. Like, this is a moment where Malcolm is being manipulative. Absolutely, he is.
Yeah.
He wants what he wants for the outcome he wants. And we just spoke about how Martin has been doing this the whole episode. So I think there's a degree of difference here in terms of, you know, it's for the good of finding someone versus just manipulating. But at the end of the day, you know, a spade is a spade. And you're asking him to torture someone. Now, just because that person happens to kill people, you're still asking him to turn into the surgeon again and to do this stuff. And whether he has really changed or not, that's a mega request on his part.
Which
and
is
Martin
why
does a good job playing the like, no, I can't do that. I'm changed. It's different.
Exactly.
And maybe he really felt that way. Who knows? You know.
That's definitely a mark of like probably the biggest point of manipulation in this. We've seen it a few times on small things in the episode leading up to this. But he learns from the best, you know. He grew up in that environment, so you know, even once Martin was gone, you know, when he did start going to see him again, every time he showed up, he was met with manipulation in some way or another. So it's not surprising that he would turn to that. But at the same time, since the pilot, hello, chopping off Nico's hand, we have seen Malcolm do unconventional things where the ends justify the means.
Yeah.
And here it's, I mean, even a little bit later, we see that in something that Martin says when he refuses. You know, he says an innocent woman has to die, but at least I'll have proved something. Here, if Martin, you know, does whatever Malcolm wants him to do, you're saving somebody. Whereas if Martin just manipulated the hell out of somebody else for his own benefit, it's just for Martin's benefit. Nothing good has actually happened. So
in that scene you just mentioned, when he says that about, at least I've proved something, this whole time where he is very hardcore saying like, listen, I've changed, I'm not going to do this. The lighting is superb. He is almost completely shadowed. There is one beam of light that's hitting his eye. And it is literally like, is there really a little bit of good in him? Is there really a little bit of light in all that darkness as he's speaking? And it's such a cool symbolic moment, and it's really pretty.
Yeah, especially when you think of the symbolism of a person's eyes and how good or bad they are. Like it's very much trying to play like, oh, maybe he is actually an angel. Maybe he actually doesn't want to do this, but no.
Right. I mean, not buying it, but it's beautiful. Nonetheless.
Yeah.
I also loved how this episode, in this scene, Malcolm says like, I need you to hurt this man.
Yeah.
And in the last episode, one of the last things he says before they kiss is, what if I need? And then he chokes off the sentence. Related to his father. So it's very interesting to hear Malcolm say the phrase need in relation to Martin in two very different categories and very different scapes of what's happening in the background there. So Martin agrees, and then we kind of have a cut to the outside of the barn. We hear these hellish, miserable screams, and this song starts to crescendo in a way that just hit me like really hard. And you see Malcolm struggling with, what the hell have I done? Oh my God. And then it really, you see his tremor gone, which is so freaking important. Like the fact that he admitted that he needed his father, he begged his father to do some very morally sketchy business, and now the tremor's gone. The only other time we've seen anything subside that tremor was him getting some action on the floor. That's the only other time that tremor has stopped for something. And in this case, it's like he has kind of delved into daddy's realm a little bit. Like and now suddenly, oh, okay, I'm good. And that was a moment that was really poignant for me. Like I was like, okay, what does that mean? Like there is a lot of symbolic meaning behind that.
Yeah. But I also wondered if maybe his tremor had stopped because, you know, he wasn't. I sort of saw this whole thing as he was going back to being the young kid again. And not sort of like thinking as, oh, my daddy's doing this to protect me, just more as like my dad is doing something for me because I asked him to. And that makes me feel better as opposed to when I like lived in fear of him and what he did. That's sort of just the way that I looked at it.
I really wish, because if I'm not mistaken, I'm like 99.9 repeating % sure his hand does not shake when the knife is in it later either. Like he is straight-handed. They show his hand multiple times when when Martin hits the ground and other things. Like he is stone cold, just like the last time he stabbed his father too.
Yeah, I think it's a whole. I think it's multiple things. I think one of those pieces of that, you know, that we've mentioned, various pieces. I think it's also a control thing. Yeah. For once, he has gotten the upper hand over Martin via manipulation. You know, so be it. But we've seen multiple scenes, like, you know, like I just said a few minutes ago, we've seen him walk in and just every interaction, there's some kind of manipulation from Martin in it. Yeah. And we've watched Malcolm crumble and give in and back off and whatnot. So the fact that he was able to do something and get his father to do what he wanted, it's just all kind of like a control element of like, whoa, I really can stand up to him, you know, get my father to do something other than, you know, what he normally does. Yeah.
So at 3517, Martin, let me say the right M name, Martin exits having just completed all of the business he intended to complete. And I love the way he is played, like physically and visibly affected by it, like adrenaline rush, whatever other stuff is going on, like he's going through it. And that is the point where the song by Mizio hits like the biggest climax. There's like violins and strings and crap hits the fan. And I love it because then you see Malcolm's reaction. This is the first time Malcolm has seen his father post anything. And he really like, oh my God, like this is what happens to him when he does this, which later he's going to realize what happens when you do that to someone because he's going to experience it. And so just the way the song hits with all of that, the way that he's like, he's not really dead, throws the keys. And so you realize, okay, he did at least restrain himself enough that, you know, the person is still alive, which is honestly a bit of a shock. I'll be honest. I didn't think he was going to restrain. And then it kind of just cuts because we have a break to commercial there before the final act. And it was a moment where the song just made, I mean, the scene was amazing regardless. It could have been soundless and the scene would have been epic. But once you throw the right piece of music in there, man, it just elevates it to another level.
Yeah. And actually, credit to my boyfriend who watched this and then was talking to me about it this morning. He said, like, he loved that scene so much because when Martin comes out, like, my boyfriend equated it to like, you know, like when a shark attacks and their eyes roll back into their head and then they like come back, like that is exactly the same thing that was going on there. It was
like he blackout tortured and then came back.
Yeah
for sure.
Which is what a lot of serial killers say when they, you know, kill people. They like turn into somebody else. Like BTK called it like his Factor X and Bundy called it his Dark Passenger. Like that's, you become a totally different person. You get in the zone. Yeah. And so then the other thing that my boyfriend was talking about with me was like, what do you think he was doing in there? And I was like, oh, I know exactly what he was doing. Like, we know that he, you know, he didn't have the surgeon didn't have his surgeon tools on hand, but he had a knife. And so immediately I thought, well, Martin's extra. Martin definitely must be into like history and stuff. So of course he's probably into medieval torture. And who can forget the lovely experience, if you've ever seen Game of Thrones, of flaying someone alive, which is the act of like cutting people's skin like off, like very slowly and carefully.
Isn't that what Friar Pete did? Or a portion of what he did? Was that?
Maybe.
I think that's something that Malcolm, because he said medieval stuff, Malcolm did,
Yeah. But that's literally like you tear somebody's skin off so that only the muscles and the nerves are exposed. So like, yeah, yep, oh yeah, no, there's so much that I have learned from this.
That wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put that against him.
No, especially when Martin says like, yeah, he's alive, but he's not happy about it. Like, yeah, if you were flayed alive, like I think you would be alive, but you would not be happy. Period. So that's what I thought happened in there, but who knows?
She's like, great.
This has been Methods of Torture with Caroline.
And of course I knew this, and so then I'm telling my boyfriend this, and he just responds back with like ... thanks.
Worst cooking show ever.
Yeah.
So after we come back from the commercial break, it's around 36:40. We kind of shift gears. The music changes. It's kind of intense, and they're running, trying to find where this girl's hidden. And when they actually find this like spider hole is what they call it. Again, we have another moment where there's like this epic music, slow motion, where they open it. Tom's hand is extended. Like it's a really beautiful shot of this. And then we have the girl. Thankfully, Jeannie is actually alive, which is nice because that doesn't always happen sometimes. So good times with that. And then afterward, it's kind of the turning point of the episode. It's like our final act of what's going to go down here. And it all starts with Malcolm pulling out the phone and deciding, okay, I need to call this in. One, for the girl. The girl needs medical attention. Jeannie needs the attention she deserves. And I love that Martin says the phrase, the bad man is gone now, because that is so Malcolm trying to figure out, is the bad man really gone?
Mm-hmm.
It fits so beautifully. And I adore the pause that happens when he calls and he says, this is, I have Jeannie and this is Malcolm Bright. And then he looks and they do the eye contact. And then he says, Ann Martin Whitley. And the minute he says Ann Martin Whitley, the We're the Same theme comes through.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
I wrote that down.
I mean, it was just this like turning point. And I love that they gave Malcolm that decision. I was a little nervous, especially after the end of last episode where it's run. I'm like, we can't do this. If he wants to continue and we want to continue him working with the NYPD and the other things, logically, he has to make the right call at some point. We can't just keep saying, get away, because then he loses his credibility as working with the NYPD. So I loved that they did that. They brought him back to like center and like, okay, I need to do what's right. And ironically, I think he calls him in because he realizes what his father's capable of, given the request he made. So it was kind of his own start, but he realizes I cannot let him be out of here all because he's my father. Like I can't do that.
Yeah. He fact checked himself. He was like, has he really changed? No. All right, then.
Survey says.
Yep.
Still a psychotic serial killer.
Yep.
Yeah, he was testing his own question of whether or not, or he was testing Martin's statement of I'm a changed man. He was like, well, are you really? Because it didn't take much for me, pleading with you to do that.
I'm really wondering if this scene on the phone is the scene where he flubbed and said Malcolm Whitley that we talked about, because it's the only time in a long time that he's introduced himself as a full name a lot of times. And I'm wondering if him on the phone, like, this is Malcolm Whitley, and they're like, no, let's do that again. It would make sense for it to be that scene because he's talking about his father in the same moment and all that stuff. So that would make sense. At 38:08, we realize Martin has kind of flown the coop, and immediately we are back to Dr. Whitley in a millisecond. We're no longer Martin. We do have a dad later, but we'll talk about that in a second. But that's how quick he realizes, like, yep, changed man, all right. And he goes. At 38:47, round of applause for Adrisa Tanaka. In all 14 seconds of glory, she pops up to kind of cock block an emotional moment between Jessica and Gil. But I'm like, there she is. Like, at some point, we already knew ahead of time we got robbed of a Danny Adrisa moment. Just expect that in the deleted scenes, along with the bloopers you robbed us of last year.
Please.
Moving along. But yeah, so we finally got to see her for a hot second, giving us some intel that we kind of, it wraps up Capshaw. Like, listen, we've got even more intel now on what she's done. This is going to put her away. And so there's a nice little kind of seal on that particular jar.
Mhm.
And then we move along to 3951 is the standoff between Malcolm and Martin.
Mhm.
First of all, first things first, running up that hill, Michael is full on limping, and coming back down the hill, he is full on limping. So at some point he has like sprained his ankle running through the woods, because he is like full on limping on one leg.
Well, he's also been in prison this whole time. Like, you're not exactly
right. Like, I get it, but it's not even like
Mhm.
a I'm out of shape limp. Like, you can tell, I think.
No.
There's another time when they're looking for the spider hole door, Michael slips. You can see him
Oh, I
on the
didn't even
leaves. He
notice
goes,
that.
"Whoop," and then he like catches himself, and they keep going. So I'm like, okay, I feel like out there was some little like root or something went down, and you know, he's sprained his ankle or something. Because later when he tries to come down the hill, they let him take like one step, and then they cut away immediately, because the next step was probably like ow, like you know, like trying to go down the hill.
Mm-hmm. Well, not even like an out of shape thing, but like if I even like try and run down a hallway at work, I feel like I fall asleep.
Full of hammy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I'm not running a marathon anytime soon either.
Yeah,
I'll believe that shit to Jess. That's Jess's crazy ass.
I am not a runner. I just run a little bit, but I still yes, I do.
You're a runner.
You're a runner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But hey, okay, but I'm not lying. Every step I take, every time my foot hits the ground, is it gonna give out? Is it gonna give out? Because honestly, that's what my ankles always do.
You're still a runner. You're just a runner with questionable joints.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we have the second Dr. Whitley in this whole section of nonsense that happens. And I also love just positionally, Martin is on a hill. Like, he literally has the high ground in this conversation.
Oh my God. He has the high ground.
Like, he literally has the high ground in this conversation. Mentally, physically, he has the high ground. It's a
Star Wars reference, anyone?
Oh yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah.
Like,
good. I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure.
Yes. Meanwhile, it would be perfect for Malcolm to just go, like it's dead on. Like, it's exactly what that scene would need to be. And then we have a section where I'm about to like lose my shit, because there's so many parallels to episode 114, Eye of the Needle, in this this whole scenario. In Eye of the Needle, we have Malcolm in the cell with Martin. It's the first time that Martin admits to him that, yeah, I was trying to take you up to a cabin to kill you. And then he goes full Martin on him and somehow makes all of that Malcolm's fault. Like, I don't know how that happens, but like, yeah, I was going to kill my 10, 11-year-old boy, but it's his fault. And then just turns it all on him. You turned me in. You ruined our lives. This is all your fault because you called the police. And in that scene in Eye of the Needle, it ends with triggered Malcolm stabbing his dad. And then this whole scene again, he says lines like, I did everything. I was done. You made me become him. You ruined everything. I mean, just full on Martining the whole damn situation. Blames Malcolm. I absolutely adored Martin. Like, I mean, Michael in character gets like so high. He's like punching things in the air. Turning around like super pissed. So he was in it. He was in it to win it for that scene.
He almost swore. I almost like felt like he was actually gonna swear. I was like, go for it.
He like swung hard enough that he like spun around. I mean, he was in the zone, which was amazing. It was awesome from Michael. Every reaction shot we get from Tom is just a knife to your heart. And in 114, it's the same way. In 114, he manages to look simultaneously like a 10-year-old and a 31-year-old at the same time. And he does that same crap in this scene, to the point where he's like angry and heartbroken and feels guilty and is like, screw you, this isn't my fault. Like, all in the same face. Like, he does such a wonderful job. And again, maybe if we get on HBO, he'll get an Emmy nomination, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Like, maybe if we get off a shitty network, we'll get the Emmy nomination we deserse for this man. I don't even care at this point. I said it.
I mean, I hate to say it, but
for this, I wrote, I was trying to be a good father, is the line where he punches and he gets really angry. And I just went, apparently trying to be a good father sounds a lot like doing whatever he wants to get whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And then Malcolm says dad. Malcolm says dad.
Yeah, but not to the right person.
I know. True. It is the third time he said it in the entire show. He's only said it 3 times. He said it in what episode is it where he has the candle hallucination and he thinks he's burning himself and all that. He says dad then, but it's early. I want to say it's like the family friend, maybe it might be 108.
Yeah, it's when he keeps getting those hallucinations.
Yeah, the hallucination. Martin is there and he's asking about a camping trip and he says dad, but it's really, I almost think if the writers could fix it, they would reverse that dad, because it's not emotional in any way. It's just dad. Like he just says it, and then later it becomes such an important thing that he never calls him that I think if the writers could go back, they would not make him say dad there, because he yells dad when, you know, the whole Eddie thing is happening and he thinks Martin's about to die in his cell and he's going to watch it. And then he says it here. Here, it is not really like desperation. It's like, look at me, like dad. Yeah. Trying to help you. So it's not like I'm crying because I think you're about to die. I'm worried about, like, it's like, listen, this is what has to happen. You are not made for the outside. You're not allowed to be here. Still poignant and still deep as hell. Yeah. At 41:34, we have the moment which later Malcolm identifies where Martin has made his choice. He knows what's about to go down. And again, the millisecond, like you watch the eyes, again, they do that thing where the eyes are down, the eyes pop up, and there it is. There's the guy we've all known. And then there's the We're the Same business all up in the background, just da-na-na-na-na-na. Like, I'm like, yes, there he is. And he says, like, I was a good father, but you were never a good son. That just about put me in rage mode at that. That also, again, this whole finale version of the We're the Same thing, I'm going to go on about in just a minute. But like, there's like, it starts out with like some horror strings and stuff happening when he says that. Like, Malcolm, you know, realizes like, oh man, he's made his decision. And he says, like, you've decided you're going to kill me, aren't you? I adored what Sam Sclaver said in an interview that came out with TV Insider, that in those moments, I really think we're seeing Bright, the FBI agent, staring down a killer with a knife, and he's calculating what that killer is thinking. So it's very much like, again, he used to be in the FBI. Don't even get me started on the fact that I could talk about that for 14 hours, but fine. And he realizes, like, okay, we have to turn off dad mode now. This is how do I survive? And how do I get out of this situation with this psycho killer? So at 42:20, we have this moment. We have Martin actually goes in and attempts to stab his son. And I love that we had 30 milliseconds of capable Bright that would have been trained in hand-to-hand combat for the FBI on how to detract that from happening and to turn it. And he does. I mean, it's like textbook. If you watch it in slow motion, it's exactly how a law enforcement officer would be taught to turn it and make it happen. I don't know that I necessarily agree with this really popular fan theory of Martin guided his hand into stabbing him. No, you can tell that he didn't. All over the internet. This is all over. Like, I'm glad I haven't seen that. Him. And I'm like, no, he didn't. He was going to kill his son. At no point during this scene was Martin going to martyr himself in the name of his son. He did not go, no, hit me. No, he didn't. No. Yeah. He is a narcissist. He absolutely did not.
Yeah, so I see where they're saying that, because I tried to slow-mo watch it on Hulu, but that wasn't working, so I was pausing as best as I could. And Malcolm's hand is full on the hilt, on the handle of the blade, and Martin's hand is completely over that as as the knife goes into him. So I get why people are saying that, but
I think that's a reflection of the move that Malcolm has done.
But that's also,
like when you disarm him, and then he's gonna be like,
he's gonna chase the knife with his hand and follow it as it, where it goes. Because it's all super quick.
There's a subsection of the fandom that just wants Martin to be a murder teddy bear, and he's not a murdered teddy bear. He's a murderer. Yeah. And I mean, so here's the thing. Michael himself said in the rap interview that happened recently that he full on, like, he as Martin claimed this entire time, this escape is all for you. It's for my family. And we're all going, how the hell is it for the family? This makes no sense. But then the millisecond that escape is threatened and his freedom is threatened, he goes straight for his son, no holds barred, don't give a fuck. I'm going to stab my own damn child. I'm going to say at that time, I don't even care. Like, So don't tell me, oh, he guided his hand. No, he did not. Like, he wanted to murder his own son in the name of keeping his freedom. So not here for that argument. Not here for it whatsoever.
Yeah, and we know that before he's planned to do that before, you know. And just like you said, Angie,
the first time he's planned to stab his son before. So please tell me again how that was all him being a good father.
Yeah. He's a narcissist. Look it up.
Stop defending the asshole.
Yeah. Literally.
I had to bring it back.
I mean, God.
So at 42:25, we have that moment. So he's been stabbed. He's on his knees. Malcolm is absolutely in like, holy crap, what just happened mode. And we have, you know, the full circle moment from the pilot. We have the I was right, we're the same. And this is where my thing turns into all capital letters for those of you that are curious about my write-up. It is absolutely the most epic and cinematic version of this theme we have ever heard. I mean, they had to have gone back into a studio and recorded this with an orchestra, or had that many people individually record their parts at home during COVID. I don't know, but it is huge. It sounds very similar. I went through the score because I'm me, to the version that plays at the end of the pilot when he's got the syringe to himself. It has that same build and that same crescendo, but it's not the same. It has more instruments involved. It is bigger. It sounds bigger. And at this point, I didn't, the live view, I did not have the reaction, because in the live view, I was just, what happens? What's going on? Like, I wasn't focused. In the second view, when I was writing this up and I hit that, I bawled. I had full on like Frisian tears, emotional response, maybe because of the cellos. Like, there's a part at the end where like these cellos just crescendo to where they are digging into the strings. It's heightened emotion. It's epic. It's that same theme we've heard that represents their whole relationship and everything leading up to this moment for 33 episodes. And it just hit me. Like, I was just sitting here like I was like heaving. Like, it was horrible. I'm sure if anyone would have seen me, they would have been like, dude, what the heck is wrong with you? And I just wrote, my soul has left my body. That's what I wrote at the end of it. Like, it was too much. And I can't, you know, I'll be damned if this is the last opportunity I get to praise Nathaniel Bloom's genius, because it was gorgeous. It was a feat of composing. That's all I can say.
Wow.
It was amazing. Okay, I'm good.
Just giving you some space there too.
I need a moment. I'm good. I'm like,
okay.
And then we get to our grand finale, which is Danny walks up and says, Bright, what did you do? And that's the point where the cellos hit. Like, it's like it gets really psycho high. But the fact that they end on all people, it could have been Gil, it could have been Ainsley and been poignant. It could have been Gil and been poignant. It's Danny. And I feel like that means something. And given, again, intel we've heard in the days afterward from Sam and Chris, like, they full on said that the Danny Malcolm kind of will they, won't they, where are they at mentally relationship was the spine of their season 3 pitch. So I swear to God, if we don't get an F in season 3, we riot. We riot on. Like,
we riot on.
I did want to point out though, an interaction that Aurora had on Twitter, where first of all, she gave us some behind the scenes. Like, she was not there with Tom in that scene. She was filming to, you know, like a dummy person reading lines or whatever. So she's in a whole different place, whole different situation. And the Motley fan, her name is Allison Cooper on here, said if Danny wasn't the one that was supposed to find Bright, because there was like a misunderstanding in how scheduling works and things like that, for then who was? And she says, no, it was always meant to be Danny. It's just we had to shoot on different days. And then another person said, I've seen people debate this. Do you think that Danny was afraid of Malcolm in this scene or afraid for him? And Aurora responded with not afraid, in shock, worried about what this means for their future and the legal aspects for Malcolm and his mental health.
Yep.
So I love coming from, you know, essentially the character herself. She's not terrified of Malcolm. Again, coming from last week, this is the outcome that Danny kind of wants. She doesn't want Malcolm to be the one to do it because of what that's going to do to affect him.
Sure.
But I mean, everybody on the team wants Martin gone. Let's be straight up about it. Like, so I like that kind of was like, no, like, she knows what this means for Malcolm. and she's worried about where that spiral is going to go, because we know there's going to be a spiral about that in the future if that were to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And so many people, especially right after the episode happened, like on Twitter on the East Coast, were saying like, her saying like, what did you do? Like, she's clearly like terrified of him, but she's in shock.
What I would say. What did you do? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Be.
Yeah, literally. Like, and some people were trying to break down like it's the way that she says it, like how she's like, you know, like, what did you do? She's like, again with the face journeys, like her. I could just like take screenshots of every single moment when she says that. You never know how you're gonna say something when you're in shock. Like, get out of here. This is not like turning her off. She's just like, what did you do? As just like, I have no idea what to say. Like, what am I looking at here? So
I mean, if I saw Caroline standing over a body with a bloody knife and I walked up, I'd be like, Caroline, what did you do? Like, that's what I'm gonna say. Even though logistically it's pretty obvious what Caroline has done, but I'm still gonna say it. Like, what the hell did you do, Caroline? Like, that's just the response. That's what you say.
Yeah, she's not gonna go up and be like, oh, thank God you finally did it. She's gonna be like, what did you do? She's like, so should we go on a date now? Like,
let's make out over the body. No.
I mean, the last time the two of them saw each other, like, Bright was fine. So it's been, I didn't track, I don't know if any of us had tracked how long it's been since the last time she saw him. And
I want to say, like,
again,
not even, maybe 48 hours, not even. We have one night that happens.
Longer than 2 days. So to go from him being perfectly fine to not knowing what condition he's in, especially after getting confirmation from Capshaw of what she did. Not in detail,
for all
but
they know,
torture.
Martin has been effing with him.
And then you know, Martin took off.
I'm assuming too. I think we had this discussion on Discord that the missing Danny Adrisa scene is related to the blood in the syringe. Like, they identified that it is actually Malcolm. And I'm assuming they would have like a "we're both concerned about Bright" moment right there. So for her, all she knows is Malcolm's missing. The blood in the syringe was his. Where the hell is he? Is he okay? Is he complicit? Is he not complicit? Like, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. So, I mean, that wraps the episode. That's where we stand. I got to be honest, like, having gotten the news that we got and the other stuff, I was very concerned about how I was going to feel walking away from this episode. How much of a cliffhanger was it going to be? I think a lot of us predicted it was going to end in an injured Martin, given how everything was going to go. So I think I had prepared myself for that. It wasn't quite so like gasp. But just in general, I mean, obviously I would have loved a little bit more of the NYPD team. But again, we heard that from Aurora. Like, there's not as much of us. We knew in advance that was something in an interview that she said. So I left it in a much higher spirits than I thought I would. I mean, honestly, in the very horrible parallel universe where this is the last episode we ever get, it's got more closure than I expected it to have, and it has more full circle and more, you know, it's all come to pass and this was everything. And there's dangling things out there that I want to see more of and all that, and that's always going to be the way it's going to be. But if, God forbid, this is the last one, I think it's way better than what some canceled shows end up with as their final episode. It really was, though. I mean, it was just, the writing was great. It was. I really wish we could have had an hour and a half episode, because I feel like we could have fleshed out a little more of like some fighting or some struggle or what happens in the barn or whatever. But I don't have a lot of complaints about it.
No,
I really don't. Like, it was a well done finale episode, whether that be season or series. It was well done. Obviously, we all have our opinion and what we want. Which kind of leads me into something that we talked about. Like, do we do this? Do we not do this? And I did, for just in case, and the off
realistic reasons.
Like, I am a realist, and I understand that there is a small there's a percentage of likelihood maybe that this would not get picked up. Who knows? I really just wanted to take a chance and say thank you. I wanted to say thank you to the people that, you know, subscribed to this and watched us act crazy in my psycho facial expressions every week when we did this. I wanted to say thank you to like the cast and crew and everything that everyone behind the scenes and in front of the camera, and what they gave us in 33 episodes was astounding. And if that's it, then it was 33 effing amazing episodes of storytelling and entertainment. And honestly, most importantly, I want to thank you guys and our other 3 behind the scenes people, because fate saw fit to bring me this show. And then as an extension of that, I got family out of it. I got sisters out of it that I've never had because I don't have sisters. And I still every so often I get so flabbergasted that at a freaking seafood restaurant in Rhode Island, you crazy asses agreed to do a podcast with me when none of us had any experience, any knowledge about how to make a podcast. We didn't have a camera, we didn't have a microphone, we didn't have shit. Nothing. We were sitting there eating fish and chips, and y'all went, "Yeah, sure, let's go." And I just went, "I love these people."
Yeah.
And then now look, look what happened, and it just. Regardless of what happens, I'm so grateful for this experience and that we got to do this together. Like, this is like a time capsule of this moment in our lives and what was important, because our friendship is going to go on. Yep. It's not dependent on the show. We've bonded and we've grown, and we will move on regardless of what happens. Yep. But what an amazing time capsule of this moment in our lives to be able to go back years from now and look at this stuff and be like, dude, we did that shit. That was crazy. Like, remember when we used to rant about this TV show? It was awesome.
Yeah.
It's such a blessing. It's such a blessing. And thank you guys for agreeing and actually going on the crazy ride. I appreciate it.
As I was driving home today from work to get ready, I found myself listening to what I listened to before we did the very first episode, which was the first episode of the very popular, one of my favorite podcasts, My Favorite Murder, which I listened to the very first episode that they did, and they come on to this and they're so, you can tell they're so uncomfortable. They're like, we're recording ourselves talking, and that's just, I'm sure I know that is exactly how we felt when we were on camera and we were talking, and just knowing what that podcast is now. I listened to that their very beginnings because I was like, I'm about to do this too. This is a turning point. We talk about turning points in the show. This was a turning point in our lives, in our friendship, all of us. And just, wow.
I mean, we agreed to a second job. Full on 3 to 4 nights a week. We are writing this crap up. We are filming, and we don't get paid anything. We're paying for the privilege of posting this on the internet through RSS feeds. That we have no income. If y'all don't know, we are not getting income from this.
We're broke.
We don't get ads. We don't have ad revenue. We have not monetized this at any point. If HBO wants to hire us and let us do it, we will absolutely agree to that. Just saying. But so I mean, this is literally just a labor of love, and it's a labor, and the amount of time Britt puts in with all the other crap she's doing, which we'll get to in a minute. But we do this out of love for the show and each other, and I will be forever grateful for the fact that if I only got 33 episodes, look what else we got in addition to it, and it's worth every minute, and it's worth every psychotic discussion and discord about what the hell are we going to rant about. It's been such a blessing, and I'm so thankful that you guys agreed and have been such a big part of my life and will continue to be.
And we didn't set out to do anything. When this show started and we found each other on Twitter, we started just spending hours on Zoom doing nothing but freaking out and analyzing episodes and things that happened and screaming about intel that we got and promos that would drop. We have rooms in our Discord for various things, whether it be our own personal lives and just, talking about whatever and just being us. So we, like I said, we didn't set out to do anything. We just did this on our own. This is what we did when we, got on Zoom with each other. We
were doing it anyway. We might as well.
We were doing it anyway. For the first season, and so that's why when you guys were down here for a weekend, and you were just like, hey, why don't we do this? But it doesn't matter what comes of it. If no one listens, no one listens. If some people listen, that's great. Who wants to listen to us scream and freak out and fangirl? And apparently there's a bunch of people that do. So thank you to whoever has listened to us at least once or has listened to us every single week. Shout out to Libby, who likes to live tweet. So the fact that anybody wants to listen to the three of us nerd out about our specific backgrounds and professions and whatnot, and the insight that we bring to
it's nuts that. It still blows my mind when I get a Twitter mention and it's hey, what did you think of this? I'm like,
What?
Excuse me?
What?
You want my opinion because you've heard my opinion? What?
Yeah. So and just this, like, the show before, I started really talking to you guys, and before we all really connected, there were a number of episodes that we watched on our own, and didn't have this kind of group dynamic at all. So the show, before you guys were even around, like, I called the show my coping mechanism, because I was a really horrendous portion of my life last year at the time that I found the show. And so,
and then we as a group became our coping mechanism.
Yes, and then we as a group. So so this show became even more of a coping mechanism, and extremely important to my mental health. And then it wasn't until hiatus that the 6-week break in the middle of the season that I realized how important the routine of show on Tuesday, rewatch on Wednesday and or Thursday, and then originally we would record Friday night. Now it's Thursday, so it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, weekly. I had something to look forward to, I had routine, I had structure. And it was just like I was losing my damn mind. By week 4, I was like, guys, I miss you so much. Like, can we record a bonus episode? Because I just want to, like, do something. So.
Yeah. And now I just cannot watch any other show without thinking, like, I'm thinking of music stuff, like what Angie would do. I'm thinking of, like, crime. I'm just going everywhere with it. Like, I can't watch anything and, like, sit down anymore. Like, God forbid there's a reality TV show that I'm going to have to be subjected to watching with my
You're going to analyze
that
too. Why did they choose that camera angle? What was the point of that? Like,
yeah, or even more than that, I'm going to be like, this is so boring. They could do so much more. Like, where's the soundtrack to this? So.
But yeah, I mean, we're so grateful to you guys, and thank you. And we're doing everything we possibly can to be back, bugging the bejesus out of y'all for another 20 some episodes.
Yes.
Yep.
And hopefully the fates see it that way too, and we are given that. So if not, then thank you. And we will probably still be doing a couple mini episodes, even if it would be to get canceled, to kind of wrap things up and get our final thoughts out there. But if not, hopefully we're just doing some in between episodes till the next season starts. Speaking of, my brain died. Let's try that again. Speaking of, there is still the Save Prodigal Son campaign out there. So make sure that you're following it and doing what you need to do, and do those Twitter parties and all that kind of stuff. So follow all their stuff. It's Prodigal Saviors on all the different Instagrams. Follow that stuff. They'll tell you what to do. We have to keep pushing now that it's over. We cannot just be like, oh, okay, it's done, and then kind of die off. This is where we are the most important. This is where we make the biggest impact on someone maybe potentially buying this for us and seeing that the fandom is still there. So make sure that you're doing that. And I refuse to say goodbye. So I'm going to say the same thing I've said every damn episode. I'm going to say see you next time.
Yep. See you then. Yeah.